Well, we're going to sing with Jesus in the Family in Spanish. Con Cristo en la familia, un feliz hogar, un feliz hogar, un feliz hogar. Con Cristo en la familia, un feliz hogar, un feliz hogar. Of course, in English, with Jesus in the family, we'll have a happy home. We'll have a happy home. We'll have a happy home. With Jesus in the family, we'll have a happy home. We'll have a happy home. Well, you know that song, every time we'd go into a new area, we would get the children to teach us enough of their dialect to where we could sing that song. Then the children would learn that new song and go through the village singing with Jesus in the family. We'll have a happy home. That would open the door a lot of times in a different Indian village where would be hard to get the door open. Children just love to learn new songs. And so anyway, well, we got through Salvador and we got through Honduras. We got now to the border of Nicaragua. And they warned us when we entered in Nicaragua that don't stop at night. A lot of bandits and terrorists. During those years, there was a lot of Sandinistas from Cuba holed up in the mountains. Training camps, and it was just plain outlaws. And one thing you did not do at night is you didn't travel the highways. And we still go down those areas. You don't travel at night in those countries. One reason is it's open range, and a lot of times cattle you can come over a hill around the curve and there'll be maybe some cattle right in the road or goats or stuff. But anyway, we took off, and sure enough, I started getting flat tires. I think the kind of gravel they used in those roads was made from volcanic rock, crushed stone, and different things. And it was real hard on tires. And we didn't have the best of tires in the world, but we had to usually take several spares. Well, we broke down before we could get to Managua, and I had to leave Betty, and I had to hitchhike into Managua. So no way I could take the whole family and leave the truck. So she stayed there with the children. And at that time we had Victor and Valerie and Beline. So I got a ride right off, and I was getting into Managua. I went to a church called a Príncipe de Paz, which is Prince of Peace in English, and told them of my situation. And so they said we have to get back to them real quick. So with no time at all, we got a truck and some tires and rims. I'd worn my tires all the way down past the rims. Because they told us, no, you don't want to stop there. All right, back at the truck, Betty was going through her own situation. These bandits came down out of the mountains, surrounded the truck with horses. They had the bullets going across their chest. They had rifles and stuff, and kind of like the old Pancho Villa, old hats and long mustaches and everything. Of course, it terrified her. And they kept walking around the truck, half a dozen of them or so, and then they didn't say nothing. And they went back up in those hills, and every once in a while Betty would see one come back, so she felt like they're just waiting for nighttime. This was right on the Pan American Highway. So something beautiful happened to Betty, and she'll be able to share more about it in detail when she testifies. But grace of the Lord came upon Betty, took away her fear of dying. You know, she made up her mind that she could actually have to see her children taken from her and killed, and herself killed, and and confiscates everything they could out of the truck. And but the grace of the Lord overcame all that fear and just put a mantle of grace over Betty where she wasn't afraid. And we got there, I'll bet you we got there about an hour before dark. I was in a real hurry to get there because I'm getting real warnings from people that live in Nicaragua. We have to get there before dark. So we were doing everything we could to get there, and we did get there. It was something I'll never forget. Betty had the children down on the floorboard. She was praying over them. And when I looked at her, the glory of God was all over Betty. She didn't even know who I was. She was having a hard time recognizing me. And I kept tapping on the window. Let me in. Open the truck. Unlock the doors. Let me in. I'm back. I'm back. It's like she couldn't realize it. She was somewhere else. But she's had the glory of God all over her. Finally got that door open and got her out of there. You know, the Lord He could lift that grace off her. And she fell into my arms. She just had a panic attack. Started screaming because she didn't need the grace of the Lord now. She had me there. And she started screaming. I had to slap her a couple times, get her to come back to reality. And we just held each other, and thank God. But it showed us one thing you will never forget. Betty, most of all, won't forget. The Lord's got things for us, folks, that you don't need right now. And when it comes to a place in your life, in your walk, where you need an extra grace, God's going to pour it out on you. Don't be afraid of the future. Don't fear anything, because the Lord will take care of you. You may not feel it now, but it's available. He's got so much available that we know nothing about until we get to that actual place. Well, we got into Managua and ministered in the church there for a while, but there was a lot of arguing, a lot of division in the churches there. One denomination would have nothing to do with another denomination. I worked at it for a while, but my ministry has always been going to the frontiers where the gospel hasn't been preached. So Betty stayed with a little Christian family out there on a little ranch, and this precious man and woman had a place out there where she could stay, because they told me that there was a group of Indians called the Sambo Indians, and the river, a border river called the Rio Coco. And I got there, I left Betty there at a place, a good Christian family, my wife and kids, while I took off up that river. Well, I couldn't drive to the end of the road up along Rio Coco because the road was washed out. And I was watching this bulldozer rebuild the road. I finally got through there and came to a place where I just had to leave my truck. He couldn't go any further. So I went ahead and got in a vehicle that was four-wheel drive and got to the last village. And in that village, there, right there where the river, the Rio Coco, came real close. And I planned on taking a boat, a dugout, whatever I could do up that river, trying to find these Sambo Indians. But while I was there, I was invited to stay with a family, and they They took care of me, and that's the way it always was. You know, you always found worthy people in a village. Most villages, not all villages, but and they just insist on letting and you staying with them, and they just treated you like a king, and it was just a blessing. And so I ministered in that village while I was waiting to find a boat to go up that river. And I'm here to tell you that this precious man and woman, they fell in love with the gospel of Jesus Christ and wanted to be baptized. Well, I said, that's not a problem. And their sons and daughters and grandchildren, they were there. And they said, well, we have a problem before we get baptized. We're not married. And I said, really? Well, how long have you been together? They said, well, about 25, 26 years. And they had a lot of grandchildren and their own children, and they all received the gospel of Christ. And I said, well, why haven't you been married? I mean, is there a place here to get married? They said, no. Here you get married by the priest of the Catholic Church, and it takes a lot of money. It would take a life savings to get him to come up this river to marry us. Well, I said, well, that's not a problem. Marriage is one of those free things. It's a gift of the Lord. And so I went ahead and we had a marriage ceremony and a baptismal. So we all went down to that river, and here's a picture of all of them waving. They just fell in love with Jesus, and that was part of the reason I figured, wow, the Lord put the symbols in my mind. He had a group of people that was waiting to receive the gospel of Jesus. So finally got in a dugout canoe and went up that river, and it was about a day's journey to the Sambos. And they weren't near as primitive as people tell me they were. Because nobody goes, you know, people hear rumors and they hear fears, stories, and so nobody goes to them, but they were precious people. And I got to stay there with them for many days, almost a week, I believe, sharing the gospel with them. And there were some interesting things happened there. They had arrows with no feathers on them. I never had seen that before. They would shoot straight up in the air with their arrow. And they, of course, they had a point on there that made of metal. It would turn around and come down. And I couldn't figure out why they did that. So we went out hunting, and there was some monkeys in the tree, and the monkeys all run to the top of a tree. So you can't see them through all them limbs. And then, what they do is they stand off and they shoot their arrow up in the air, and it comes down. It's the monkey in the back. And so, praise the Lord. I've never seen that before.